At 66, a year after I buried my son, his widow told me I would never see my grandchildren again. And she said it soft in the kitchen so the little ones wouldn't hear. Just leaned close, wiping her hands on a towel, and said it like she was telling me we were out of milk. My name's Marion, 66. Muncie, Indiana, my whole life. 30 years I cooked in a school cafeteria. The lunch lady. That's what the kids call you, and you learn to like it. 30 years of trays and steam tables, and knowing which second grader wouldn't eat unless you cut the sandwich a certain way. That was me. And I had one boy, Danny. About a year and a half ago, I buried him. And after that, his wife had a new man around, and slow, real slow, she started taking the kids out of my hands, telling them to call the new man's mother Grandma, and then not telling me about my own grandson's birthday until it was over. That's what she said. That word at the end, you understand, like she was doing me a kindness explaining it. And what I did after? I don't think one single person who knows me saw it coming. I didn't fight her. I didn't go find a lawyer. I did the last thing a lunch lady from Muncie is supposed to do. I sold off most of what I had, and I bought a one-way ticket to a little town on the other side of the world, one I couldn't even find on the map the first 3 times I looked. A place called Tagbilaran. And I'll tell you right now, the part that surprised me most came later, and I still turn it over some nights. Why there? I'll be honest, it was half an accident. I'd been sitting up too late, the way you do when the house is empty, watching videos of places I'd never go. And there was this island, Bohol, and the water off it was a color I didn't have a word for. And there were these little boats with the arms out to the sides, outriggers. And I kept the tab open for weeks, the way a person keeps a brochure on the fridge they know they'll never use. Except one morning I booked it, 66 years old, and I flew. Lord, I don't even want to count the hours I lost track over the ocean. With 2 suitcases and a folder of printed-out papers I'd read so many times the ink was going soft. Headed for a town I'd never laid eyes on, because it was the only direction that wasn't back toward that kitchen. And that first night, I sat on the edge of a strange bed, and I thought, Marion, you have finally, truly lost your mind. The heat got me first. I came out of that little airport and it just leaned on me, wet and heavy. And by the time I'd found the fellow holding a sign with my name spelled 2 letters wrong, my blouse was stuck to my back. It was loud in a way I wasn't ready for. Motorbikes everywhere, going around each other like water going around a rock. They'd told me to take a habal to where I was staying, which I didn't know what that was, and it turns out it's just a man on a motorbike, and you climb on the back, and that's the taxi. That's it. No door, no seatbelt, no roof, you and your 2 suitcases and a stranger, and the whole warm dark going by. I about died. I held on to the back of that seat, and I got to the little place I'd rented near the water, and I sat down, and the fan overhead just pushed the hot air around, and I put my face in my hands. I thought about Danny. I thought about the grandkids not even knowing where I'd gone. And I thought, in the morning, I will find out how to get back on a plane. Except there wasn't much back there to get to. That's the thing that kept me in the bed. Those first couple weeks were rough, rougher than the videos ever let on. And the videos are the whole problem. They only ever show you the water. The heat never quit. I was wringing wet by breakfast, my ankles all puffed up, and I couldn't sleep for the newness of it. There was a bird, I'll get to that bird, and there were church bells that went off closer to my window than I'd have picked, and I got my stomach turned inside out by something I ate off a stick that I still couldn't name for you. I got lost walking to a store I'd already been to twice. And I stood in the middle of a little market one afternoon and just about cried because I couldn't find one single thing my hands knew. Bread. I wanted bread, the kind you know, and I couldn't even find that. And I stood there and thought, you traded being pushed out of one family for being a stranger to everybody, and it's hotter here. At least in Muncie, somebody at the Kroger knew my name. I'll give you one of those hard days whole, so you don't think it was all just heat and being turned around. There was a morning I set out to mail a card. My sister Peg's birthday back in Ohio. A little card with a bird on it. And I wanted it to go home so somebody there would know I was still a person who sent cards. And I could not find the post office. I asked, and folks were kind. They'd point and smile and point again, and I'd go the way they pointed, and there'd be no post office, just more. I finally found it, and it was shut. Some saint's day I'd never heard of, closed up tight. And I stood at that locked door with a sweated-through card in my hand and felt about as useless as a person can feel. Couldn't do the one small thing. A boy of maybe 10 on a bicycle stopped and asked me, careful, in real good English, was I lost, ma'am? And I said, no, I'm fine, thank you, because I did not have it in me right then to be helped by a child. Put that card in my bag, never sent it. And I missed things I didn't expect. I missed the cold, if you can believe that. A gray Indiana November, a coat, the way your breath shows in the parking lot. I missed the little kitchen at the school even, the smell of it at 6 a.m. before the kids came. That was 30 years of my mornings, and I gave it up without much of a fight when they said I'd aged out. There was one night early on I couldn't get the walk-in cooler at the school out of my head, of all the fool things to miss. Danny, when he was small, he'd hide in that cooler because he liked the cold, and I'd have to go dig him out, blue-lipped and laughing. I lay there in that hot little room, and I could feel that cold on my arms plain as anything, and hear him laughing in it. And then I couldn't. And that was... But mostly, this is the one that would get me at 3 a.m. I missed the sound of grandkids. My grandson, Micah, he's 8. He used to talk without stopping, about nothing, about a bug, about a show, just this river of talk. And I missed being the one he aimed it at. That's what she took. Not a house, not money. She took being the one he aimed it at. I have to be straight with you about how low it went before it turned, because I don't want to skip to the pretty part and cheat you. There was a stretch, 2-3 weeks in, where I mostly stayed inside. The new had worn off, and what was under it was just the ache. I'd lie there in the dark and grieve Danny all over again like it was fresh, and then on top of it grieve the kids who were alive
which is somehow worse, grieving people who are alive and just kept from you. I kept a photo of Danny in my suitcase the whole time, face down under my sweaters. I couldn't set it out. I don't know how to explain it, except that setting it out made it a thing that was true, and I wasn't ready for it to be true in a new house. Anyway, where was I? The town started turning into people, real slow. So slow, I about missed it happening.
First one was Manang Dude. Manang is a respect word, like ma'am, for an older woman. I got taught that quick. She sold calamay out of her own house, this sweet, sticky thing, coconut and rice, dark, and they pack it in little cups made of banana leaf. And the first one somebody handed me, I didn't know how you were even meant to eat it. Do you spoon it? Do you bite it? I sat there like a fool, turning the cup. Dude was maybe 70, small, a voice like she'd been yelling across a field her whole life, and she was blunt as a hammer, but warm under it. She'd see me going by, all red in the face, and she'd holler, "Ma'am, why you walking in the sun like a crazy? Come, sit." And she'd drag a little stool into the shade by her door, and I'd sit, and she'd hand me a cup of that calamay, and not need me to talk, which was the first time in weeks I felt like a person instead of a problem somebody was managing. And I have to tell you about the day I made an absolute fool of myself, because it's the day everything hangs off of, though I didn't know it then. There was a little boy on my street, a neighbor's kid, maybe 5, name of Rakoy, and he came up to me while I was standing outside Dude's, and he reached out and took my hand. And see, back home you learn to hold your purse, and this small hand grabbed mine and pulled it up toward his face, and my whole body just went, and I yanked it back, hard. I thought he was going after my ring or begging. I don't know what I thought. I just snatched my hand away like he'd burned me. And this boy's face just fell, and his mother came flying over. Lita, her name was, though I didn't know it yet. Mortified, red to the ears, apologizing in 2 languages, saying, sorry po, ma'am, he is only, and never finishing it, because how do you finish it? And I was standing there with my own face on fire, not even knowing what I'd done wrong, just knowing I'd done something. And Dude's watching the whole thing from her stool. It was later, she told me. The boy was doing mano po. It's a thing the children do to an elder. They take your hand, the back of your hand, and they press it to their forehead. It's a blessing. It's respect. You give the child your hand, and they bless themselves with it, with you, with your being old, which over here is a thing you get to be, not a thing they hide you for. And that little boy had reached out to bless himself on me, an old stranger, just because I was old, and I'd yanked my hand back like he was a pickpocket. Dude told me plain, no softening it, that's how she is. And I had to go sit down, because a child had reached out to claim me as an elder, which is the exact thing that got taken from me at home. And when it finally came for me, all the way across the world, I flinched from it like it might bite. I didn't sleep that night either. That bird was going next door. I'll get to the bird. But I have to tell you how it got mended, because it did, and that's more the point than the mess of it. It ate at me 2 days, and on the 3rd, I bought a little bag of those cheese curls the children all love, the ones that turn your fingers orange. And I went and stood in front of Lita's place, like a girl come to own up to a broke window. And I didn't have the words, so I just held the bag out and put my own hand up to my own forehead, clumsy, showing her I finally understood the thing I'd got wrong. And her whole face changed. And he came out slow, still not sure of me, and I crouched down, which my knees did not thank me for, and held my hand out to him this time, the back of it, the way it was meant. He looked up at his mother, she nodded, and he pressed my old hand to his little forehead, and I swear I felt it go right up my arm. And then, because he's 5, he grabbed the cheese curls and ran off, done with the both of us, and Lita laughed and I laughed, that laugh that's mostly relief.
Then there was Kuya Emil. Kuya is like older brother. They use it for a man a little older than you'd call a kid. Emil was maybe 30, drove a habal, one of the motorbike fellows. And he was the one who figured out I couldn't get on the back of that bike without help, my knees being what they are. And after the first couple times, he just started pulling right up close and holding the frame steady and not making a thing of it. Easy going, that one. Nothing rattled him. He'd take me the long way sometimes, just so I could see the water, and he never charged me for the extra. And once, when I got weepy trying to thank him, I did that a lot those days, weepy over small kindnesses. He just shrugged and said, "Ma'am, it's okay. You are like my nane now, my mother." Emil was saving up for a bigger bike, a real one, and he'd show me pictures of it on his phone, this red thing, and tell me how many more months, and the number kept moving on him because something always came up. A tire, his sister's tuition, the roof. I'd nod along like I understood a thing about motorbikes. That's just Emil. And Christina, I've got to bring in Christina before she matters, because she's going to matter. Young mother, lived close by, worked over on Panglao at one of the resorts, cleaning rooms, long days. She had a little one, a toddler. Bing Bing, they called her. This fat-cheeked thing that would not keep her shoes on to save your life. Christina was quiet with me at first, shy of her English, and I was shy of being in the way. So for a while we just nodded. But she'd see me sitting at due days, and she'd give me this little smile. And once she set Bing Bing down near me while she ran back for something, just for a minute, trusting me with her like it was nothing. And that minute did something to me I couldn't have told you at the time. That minute wasn't the only one either. There was an evening the rain came down hard and fast, the way it does, and I was caught out under Duday's little overhang, and so was Christina, with the baby on her hip, waiting it out. And Bing Bing kept reaching for a shiny button on my blouse, working at it with her fat little fingers. And Christina went to pull her back, and I said, "No, no, let her." And that baby stood there, half the storm, just turning that button, serious about it, like it was the most important job in the world. And Christina, who hardly said 10 words to me most days, started talking, quiet, over the noise of the rain. Told me the baby's real name, Beatrice. Bing Bing's just the little name. And that the father was working on a container ship,
Gone 11 months of the year. Never yet held the baby standing up, on account of she was always asleep when the calls came through. And after they'd gone, I stood in the drip, feeling let. Now I want to tell you the money part, plain, because I figure some of you have been doing that quiet math this whole time, wondering, could a person like you actually do a thing like this? So here it is. My place, a small one near the water, clean, $360 a month, and that's the rent flat. I did cave and buy a little air conditioner after a few weeks, one of those box ones that rattles, and that's a bit more on the electric. But I decided my ankles had earned it. Food, and I eat good here. Fish right off the boats, and rice and fruit I never had names for. 270 or so. Now the part that took me a while to trust. I went to a doctor, a real one, in a little clinic with a fan going and a poster of the bones on the wall. And I'll tell you, I was braced for the American number, that clench you get in your gut before they tell you what it costs. He sat with me a good long while. Asked me about the swelling in my ankles, sure. But then he asked, was I sleeping? Was I eating? Was I alone here? Asked about my life, not just the parts of me that hurt. And when I went up front, the girl at the desk told me the fee, and I heard the number, and I asked her, was that dollars or the pesos? Because I was sure I'd mixed up the money. $22 for all that time he gave me. 22. And the pharmacy about undid me the same way. Back home, you get your blood pressure pills in a bottle of 90, and you hand over whatever they say, and you don't ask, because what are you going to do? Here I walked into a little pharmacia, no prescription, no line, and the woman behind the counter, she'll cut the pills right off the strip for you, however many you want. You want 10? She gives you 10. You come short at the end of the month? You buy 3 to get you to payday. Cost me a few pesos a pill. I stood there with these little foil squares in my hand, doing the math, and I felt something in my chest come loose that I didn't even know had been clenched up for years. All that fear I'd carried about getting sick and it costing me the roof, it just wasn't in this room. And a whole day out, a boat over to Panglao or up a river, all of it together with every little comfort, I was living with my head up on right around $1,320 a month. But the cheap of it isn't the part I'd cross an ocean to tell you about, so let me not pretend it is. If cheap rent and warm water were all that was waiting here, I'd have been just as thrown out as I was in that Muncie kitchen, only with a nicer view to be lonely in front of. The money bought me the room. It didn't buy me the rest of it. The rest of it came free, and I never once saw it coming. Because there was a trip that cracked me open. Emil took me and a couple of the neighbors up the Lobach River one day on a boat, and somebody spotted a tarsier. You maybe never heard of it. I sure hadn't. This tiny little thing clinging to a branch, no bigger than my fist, with these eyes on it, enormous, way too big for its face, just staring back at us. And everybody went quiet and soft over it. And I stood there looking at this little creature with its huge eyes, holding onto a branch for dear life, in a place way too big for it. And I don't know, I had to turn around and look at the water for a minute.
I wasn't thinking anything grand. It was just a little thing, hanging on where the world was too big for it. And I looked at it a good long while, longer than the others did. And then Emile started the motor, and we went on. The turn, when it came without a word.
Christina's mother took sick, back on the far side of the island, and Christina had to go, and there was nobody for Bing Bing, and her shift at the resort she couldn't miss. They'd let her go if she missed it. And she stood in my doorway, worn right down, not asking really, just kind of holding the baby out and looking at me. And I said, "Give her here." And that was that. I had that toddler for the day, and then it wasn't one day, it was mornings, and I'd have Bing Bing while Christina caught the pump boat over to Panglao, and I'd feed her and lose her shoes, same as everybody, and walk her up and down the street.
And the street noticed. That's how it went. There's a little barangay daycare, a tiny one-room thing with a tin roof that roared when it rained, and the woman who ran it, Ate Baby they called her, was drowning some days, 20 little ones and 2 hands. And I started going by, and then I started staying. And 30 years of knowing which child won't eat unless you cut it a certain way. Turns out that doesn't leave you. And the kids started calling me Lola. Lola means grandmother. It's what you call your own, and it's also what they call any old woman they've decided to keep. Nobody asked me, could they? They just did it. One kid picked it up, and then they all had it, and there it was. Let me give you one of those daycare days, so it's not just a word to you. There was a little girl, Divine. Half the little girls over here are named Divine or Angel or Princess. And she would not eat her rice, not for anybody, arms crossed like a tiny union boss. And I'd been a lunch lady 30 years, so I didn't fight her on it. I just started eating my own little bit of rice next to her, real slow and happy, going, not even looking at her. And inside of 5 minutes, she's leaned over, eating off my plate to see what's so good about mine. And I just slid the plate over. Ate Baby about fell over. And there was one, little bit of a thing they called Popoy. Wouldn't talk, not to anybody. Hadn't said a word in weeks the way I heard it. And one afternoon, I was singing under my breath while I cut the mango, some old counting song from the school. And I looked down, and Popoy's mouthing the numbers. Not out loud, and I know better than to make a thing of it. So I kept cutting and singing and let him mouth along. And the next day, he did it again. And the day after, there was a whisper coming out of him. Ate Baby cried when she heard it. I about did too, but I had a knife and a mango in my hands, so I held it. 20 of them, and 2 hands, and a tin roof, and I wouldn't trade it for anything I did in that clean American kitchen. And then one afternoon there was a whole line of them. I was leaving the daycare, and the children came, one after another, and each one took my hand, the back of my hand, and pressed it to their forehead. Mano po. One and then the next and the next, blessing themselves on me, on old Marion from Muncie, who'd yanked her hand back from the first child who ever tried it. And it hit me sideways, standing right there in the dirt with the tin roof ticking in the sun. This was it. This was the very thing. "The kids don't need you," she'd said. "Better for the kids if you're not around." And here was a whole street of them lining up to put my old hand on their heads, like it was worth something to touch. And Recoy was in that line, the boy I'd flinched from, and he did it like he'd forgotten it ever went any other way, which I suppose to him it never did. I had to look up at the sky like a fool, so a bunch of 5-year-olds wouldn't watch a grown woman. Nobody here ever handed it to me like a favor I owed for.
Christina never once made me feel like a charity case for minding her girl. If anything, she acted like I'd done her the honor. Same as Duday hauling out that stool before I could ask. Same as Emile holding the bike. Small things, 100 of them. And then one day I looked up, and I wasn't the strange American in the rented place anymore. I was somebody's Lola. And if you asked me the day it turned, I couldn't give it to you. It just wore its way in. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it all came out perfect, because I told you I'd give it to you straight. It still gets hard. I still miss the cold. Some days I'd give a lot for one gray afternoon. The heat gets to me, and I'll be short with somebody who didn't earn it. And the grief with Danny's name on it, that doesn't go anywhere. I've quit expecting it to. His widow and I, we don't talk. She sent one message, months back, a photo of the kids at Christmas, and nothing under it, no words. And I looked at that a long time, and I still don't know what it was. An open door, or just her being able to tell herself she'd sent it. I don't know if I'll ever be back in a room with those grandchildren. I've mostly made my peace with the not knowing. Most days. Some days, no. But here's what I know now that I didn't know on that plane. Dudai said a thing to me once, and I go back to it more than any wise words my own people ever gave me. She wasn't even really talking to me. She was fanning herself, watching the street. And I'd said something low about how over here they let you be an old woman, and back home they'd made me into a problem to solve. And she said in that sideways English of hers, "Ma'am, the Lola, it is a place. You stand in it. Nobody give it you. Nobody can take." Something like that. She went right back to fanning herself. And I sat there, and it went through me like cold water, because I had it backwards my whole life. I thought you earned your chair by being useful, and if you couldn't be useful, there wasn't much left of you worth the bother. That was the lie that Muncie Kitchen had about talked me into. And this little woman with a fan and no schooling to speak of had it right, and I'd had it wrong for 66 years. So let me talk right to you now, whoever you are that's still sitting here with me this late in it. Maybe there's somebody who was supposed to love you, who started handling you like a chore. Maybe you're doing that quiet math I was doing, wondering if you're too old or too broke or just too far behind to start over. I'm not going to tell you to sell your things and get on a plane. I don't know your life, and I'd be a fool to. But the place you hold, being an elder, being somebody's, that's not theirs to hand out and take back. Somebody shutting a door on you doesn't unmake it. It only tells you which door to quit knocking on. I set Danny's photo out, finally. It's on the little shelf by the window now, face up, where I can... And this evening, like most evenings, some of the barangay kids came by on their way home and took my hand one after another and pressed it to their foreheads at dusk, with the light going down orange over the water. And that fool bird next door
said the one thing it says. It's got just the one Visayan phrase, and it says it all day long. I never did find out what it means. I keep meaning to ask somebody, and I keep forgetting. Says it again right now, actually. There it goes.
If any of this sat with you, stay near. This is my friend Ruth's little channel. She comes around and asks us our stories, us old ones who went and did the crazy thing. And I'd be glad of the company next time. Bing Bing's shoes are off again. I can see them from here in the dirt by the step, so I'd best go get them before she does.